there's a lot of we have like many IGAs that we're gonna have to,
It's almost all IGAs.
yeah, all IGAs.
Yeah, except for the grant application.
I really apologize for this miscommunication. I'm trying to handle all my stuff. He sent me the text, but I totally forgot. I did try to reach out to Councilmember Gardner, and there has been no response.
Okay.
So I can
Well,
only be accountable for myself. And
no, I know. Yeah, thank you for jumping in.
so how does this work? Has this ever happened? Like I said, on Pfizer, we have a different process. Well, we can do certain things to kind of move it through, and then we do a formal position at the next meeting. But I don't know with these, are these time sensitive? What's our thing?
Yeah, a few of them are time sensitive. I'm not 100% sure if all of them are. I think so. We've had not exactly this come up before, but something similar. And we
Okay.
have done an email to the committee asking for approval to move items on to study session. So
Okay.
what we can do if Councilman Gardner doesn't get here, we can
Okay.
maybe take a few minutes and walk through which items we would need to put in an email request for the committee and then send
Okay.
that out here later today.
Okay.
Seeing if we can get a response from either Curtis or Steve, as well as yourself, on whether they would support those going to study. And then we can talk about which items might be able to wait until next month.
Okay, and so just to not waste time, so on some of these these items, can I be briefed on certain things, and just have the meeting? So we're not fully canceling the meeting. Is that appropriate for this? I'm the vice chair of it. I just don't know if that's how you guys do things. I do stuff like that on Pfizer, so.
Yeah, we can definitely give you updates on anything you might be interested in, even if the other two don't show up. I think
Okay,
we just the committee can't take any formal actions without the.
right. Okay, but we can go through the consent, kind of get an update on the consent. I can't approve the minutes, so we'll have to take that. And then I guess what we can do is we can go through each of the intergovernmental agreements that we need to move towards to get committee consent through email. Maybe we can talk through those.
Yeah, we could do
Okay,
that.
I apologize.
Totally not your fault.
I have no control over anybody else, but I'm just doing the best I can. So I tried to reach out to Councilmember Gardner, no response. So, Rachel, I don't know from procedurally, is that what we can do? What I'm suggesting?
So that sounds great. If we don't have a quorum, we can't take any official action on any business, so even approving the minutes. And then
Okay.
also any of the other items will also need to be approved in a posted public meeting. So even
Okay,
those IGAs or the consent agenda, we'll have to reschedule a meeting for that.
Okay, so with that being said, and I guess we'll find out which ones are time sensitive, it's going to be important to kind of get a reschedule of a meeting for all of us, or at least have where we can have a quorum. So even if we do email, we still have to do a formal position on those, like we kind of do for the advisor committee as well.
Yeah, email just isn't best practice because the decisions do need to be made in a posted open meeting.
Right. And I know that's why we do that. We have to take a formal position.
With FISR, we only do it because of the legislation. Yeah, I would just really be hesitant to advise that it's okay to take any official action unless it is in a posted meeting. And so certainly you can reschedule a meeting.
Okay, so we'll have to talk to, maybe send out something of when we can reschedule this meeting. I know that I have CML next week.
Now, just to clarify, Rachel, make sure we're all on the same page. All of those IGAs would go to study and then they would go to regular. So the only thing that I think we've done in the past a few times is we've moved an item directly to study. So it still goes through a formal public notice, formal approval. It still does all of that. The only thing that would happen via email would be the committee saying they're okay with it going directly to study and regular. Is that you're suggesting we shouldn't do that either?
I think there's a few ways to sort of move forward. I think one, rescheduling the meeting. Two, maybe if Lawson or another council member would want to exercise their prerogative as a council member to bring the items forward to a study session or a regular council meeting. But certainly we couldn't say that these were approved or moved forward by the Water Policy Committee.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, so Rachel, just on your point, you said for my prerogative to bring these forward to a study session, I still would need another person to agree,
You individually could exercise your prerogative under the council rules to bring these forward to a study session or to a regular council meeting.
Okay. I think I'm going to do that because I think if I can do that, just bring these forward to the study session, Marshall. And then I guess if there's questions from the council, they can address those. I just don't think, I don't want to hold it up and I don't know what's really going on with everybody. So I'm going to use my prerogative to, and power that I have to move these forward to the study session if that's the decision for me.
Okay. And I'll just to clarify, I know we've got Alex. I think we've got Sarah. Alex and Sarah, are there any items that would be not time sensitive and that we could wait until the July meeting that Angela would not need to move forward on her own?
I don't think the Strancha agreement and the U.S. Forest Service agreement are time sensitive.
Which ones of
If
those? I'm looking,
necessary.
my eyes are kind of.
Yes,
That would
those
be-
are agenda items 7
Okay,
and 8.
okay,
The agreement for Wild Horse, we can wait if necessary, but because we have the BLM's attention and we're making good progress, I would really, I would ask that we move that one forward if possible. But technically, it does not have to move forward at this meeting.
okay. So can I
And
use
that's number
my
9.
prerogative to go ahead and move forward all of the items from, except for 7 and 8 to the study session?
Yep, so you would essentially be sponsoring those items and moving
Oh,
them forward.
okay, so I'll be sponsoring those items. Okay,
Unless
so,
Sarah, any of yours that
yeah, Sarah, I'm sorry.
apply?
That's okay. I'm pretty sure that in the Mile High Flood District, none of them are time sensitive, but Sam, let me know if that's incorrect. I'm pretty sure all those can wait a month.
I would agree. All of them can wait a month.
Okay. So
Okay, so then is there nothing then, what I'm looking at that needs to
there are
go?
2 items then that we
Okay,
would ask you to move forward to sponsor. One would be the Wild Horse item, so item
Okay.
9,
okay,
and the second one would be item 10.
okay.
And we should probably, if you're willing to sponsor those, give you an overview.
Yes,
On
I
both
do
of
need
those
an
items.
overview on those. If I'm going to be sponsoring something, I guess I need to know. Okay, so I will go ahead and sponsor 9 and 10 and move those over to the study session. If I could be brief, so if we can go ahead and continue the meeting, that would be great. And I guess let's give an update on the consent 2A and 2B, and then we'll go to 9 and 10. Does that sound like an agenda for today? It's going to be a short meeting, but thank you so much for just adapting to everything that's going on here. So I appreciate everybody.
Yeah, thank you. That works.
Okay, we got it all solved. Okay, so just an update on 2A. Steve?
Oh, I'm sorry. And Steve is out this
Okay.
week. So that's basically so we have one change order this last month, and that was due to the fact that we had a large valve project that is, it's on our main water lines that go between the treatment facilities. And we had to actually stop that project and kind of break it into 2 phases because of the water quality that was coming into the system, which I think Alex had actually mentioned last time, but the water quality that was coming into our Rampart system changed based on Denver Waters, how they were using water. And so we needed to put that where that valve is located in our system back in service so that we could bring water from Aurora Res into our treatment facilities from a water quality perspective. So because we had to mobilize on that project, shut it down, remobilize on that project is why there was a change order on that project this past month.
Okay, that sounds good. 2B, John Murphy.
So good morning. John Murphy is also out today. He's on a
Okay.
field trip.
All right.
That seems like a day when very few people are available.
I know everybody's taking this vacation here, so so go ahead,
Crazy.
Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of the water supply report, in terms of drought conditions, we're in a little bit better shape due to the moisture that we got over the last month. However, we're still not out of the woods by any chance, and drought conditions are worsening in the southern part of the United States, including the Southwest, and reaching kind of the southern part of Colorado. We're a little lower on storage than we normally are at this time of year, but our water rights are yielding right now. The runoff, we believe, has peaked in the South Platte Basin. It peaked over the weekend probably, so not too much earlier than normal, but certainly a little lower than normal. While we are taking as much water as we can, our storage, as I said, is a little bit low. So conditions remain concerning, and we are paying close attention to the hydrology and how the rivers are being administered currently.
Okay. And I guess with all of the hot weather coming this week, I guess we're expecting a little bit of some rain. It's still not really helping things a lot at all. We're still kind of in a flag condition, correct? Okay.
Yes, it's really interesting when you look at the impacts of heat versus the impacts of more water. The temperature increases are so pervasive and sort of long lasting that you need much more water than average to sort of balance those out. So in my mind, the increased heat is extremely concerning, and we just see that as a not new trend, but a trend that is ongoing.
Yeah.
Every year we're setting new heat records, things are getting hotter.
Yeah.
And so we need to be keeping that in mind, that that's going to have an impact on our water supply, and a fairly significant impact on our water supply.
So are we looking for for more like water restrictions that are going to be probably coming, Marshall, probably if it continues to be hot like this? Because it's actually really hot early, more, I mean,
Yeah, so
than
right
usually
now,
it usually is. Mhm.
yeah, we're not planning to bring additional recommendations early in the year. There
Okay.
is still a lot of times by June, if we've got critical situations, we will have brought watering restriction recommendations going to stage 2
Okay.
ready. What we're going to do this year, we're continuing to monitor the runoff conditions and see what they do to storage, see what demands do, and probably July, we're going to revisit, and there's a possibility we do some recommendations for late in the season, some additional
Okay.
restrictions, but we're not planning those within the next month. That would
Okay.
we'll provide an update in the July water policy meeting. If by mid-July is typically when most of our runoff will have come. So,
Because I know where my parents live in Colorado Springs, they already have restrictions in place.
yeah, and it's kind of interesting because each water provider has slightly different normal restrictions compared to stage 1 or 2 or 3. So we have restrictions, as you're well aware, and our restrictions will vary a little bit from some of the other water providers. We've got the 3-day-a-week watering restriction and no watering between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. as kind of our permanent. Seasonal restrictions for every summer. So some communities don't have the same permanent restrictions in place, and so they'll elevate a little differently or a little sooner than us. And then it's also interesting, everybody's stage 1 or stage 2
Mhm.
restrictions are a little different too. So
Okay.
there are a couple of other entities out there that are doing some restrictions already. And there are some others, including ourselves and Denver Water. Shoot, who was the other one? There are a couple of others who are looking at potentially not doing anything immediately early in the year, but putting people on notice that they may come back later in the year.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for those updates. I guess we'll go right down to item 9, the intergovernmental agreement for Wild Horse Reservoir permit application cost. So I just got a
Yes.
quick clarification. We can move these to the study session. The study session is in July, but the actual meeting is June. So we have a meeting in June 27th. So do these need to go to that meeting, or do they need to go to the study session? Right. Because the next, I forgot, that's the next meeting is the actual meeting.
Right.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
this is Casey. We've actually already passed the deadline for them to get on to the 27th council meeting, so they would have to go in July, regardless.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
thank
I
you.
think that potentially the same issue exists though, because the 4th is also a holiday. And so the next study session isn't technically until the Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, until the 18th of July.
Correct. That's the next study
And
session.
So then the next council meeting would be the 25th. So for and I'm not sure, Alex, about the Wild Horse one, but item 10, it would be important for us to actually be able to go straight to the floor.
Yeah. So is there any way that could be, because it's kind of an emergency?
Yeah.
Can that be added, Rachel? Because that is very time sensitive.
Yep, so you can exercise your option as a council member under the council rules to
Okay.
bring it directly to study or directly to the council floor.
Okay. So for 9, I just need some opinions from the staff. Should we bring that one directly to the floor? I'm willing to do that, or do you want to wait? Because again, we're not going to have another study session until the 13th.
Or 18th.
The
Or,
18th.
I'm sorry, the 18th.
Yeah, so the Wild Horse item was slated to go to study on the 18th already for July.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then the last item, the grant application, is set to go on to council on July 11th.
Okay.
So that one's the really time sensitive one that needs to go straight to the floor.
Okay, so that one I will we'll just go straight to the floor on that one. So let's do 10. So I will need to be briefed on 10. So that one can go on the 27th.
Or
Okay.
are we going to be able to make the 27th, or would that still be on the 11th?
Yeah, that one will go on the 11th, and the
Oh, on
Wild
the
Horse
11th.
permit, yeah, will go on the 18th study session.
Okay. Okay.
you
Sorry for my confusion.
Oh, that's okay.
No, again, very helpful. So we probably should update you on both of those, because the next water policy meeting isn't until the 20th.
Okay.
So
Okay,
both
so
of
let's go ahead
those-
and brief me on both of those then. So we'll start with 9.
Okay, thank you. So, and thank you for being willing to move this one forward. That's fantastic. This agreement is a collection agreement with the Bureau of Land Management, or the BLM. The BLM owns 200 acres of land that will be partially inundated by our Wild Horse Reservoir when it's full. And in order to inundate BLM land, we need to get a right-of-way from the BLM. We've done this in the past. We currently have the city of Aurora currently has other rights-of-way with the BLM. For example, Spinney Reservoir is on BLM property. So this is not unusual or anything new. However, because of the involvement of the federal government, that creates a federal nexus. And so Aurora and the BLM are required to follow the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. And this requires the BLM to analyze the environmental impacts of building that reservoir. There are also federal mineral rights that underlie a larger portion of the wild horse footprint, and those two provide a federal nexus, which would trigger NEPA requirements. So the process that NEPA operates under, the way that NEPA is implemented in order to allow the agencies to determine and analyze the environmental impacts of a project, have developed substantially over the last several decades. And the agencies, the federal agencies, will require that the project proponent reimburse those agencies for the costs of the analysis that they need to do. This agreement sets forth that reimbursement process, and it creates an up to amount. And so if the amount changes, we will likely bring that back to council. But so the estimated cost for the work that will need to be done is about $230,000. And that includes a 10% contingency for unforeseen issues. So the payment will be made in advance. It will be like a retainer that the BLM will draw off of. They will send us quarterly statements detailing what that money has been spent on, and the costs that have been incurred. And the BLM will also look forward to the future work and let us know, here's what we think is coming up, and here's what we think the money is going to be spent on, and we will have input into those determinations. So if there are any additional funds, we will bring that back to council. But that agreement generally sets the framework to allow us to give them the retainer and to start that environmental work with the BLM.
Okay, so the money is given up front, and then based on whatever analysis they do, there could be other costs, but then that would come back to council for further review.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I think I understand that one. So.
Great. Yes,
I may have another question or so, but I think I understand what's that. That's pretty straightforward. So okay, got it.
Thank you.
Okay, so 10.
So item 10 is actually a grant application where it's a resolution to allow approval for us to apply for a grant. It's with the Bureau of Reclamation. We're asking for a $5 million grant with about a $6 million match to support a new well up at North Campus for additional water supply. We're about to construct the first of 2 wells. They're called radio collector wells, so they actually bring in more water. This grant application is for the second of those 2 wells, and the first one is about to be under construction. So they were actually just finalizing the grant application now. We're hoping to get that submitted here shortly, and we'll hear selections of the grant application process by this fall. And then we have through March of 2026 to spend the monies.
Okay. And so is the city responsible for the $6 million match? Is that the match?
Yep, that's correct. And we have included that in our 5-year capital plan.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and
Go ahead, Marshall. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. This one, we need to move these projects forward regardless. So it's really again, nice supplemental opportunity to pursue the grant and save the ratepayers some money. So
yeah, how do you think? Do you think we have a really good chance for the grant based on? And what are some of the criteria that's required for the grant to receive the grant? Or some of the questions that may be asked from, that would put our chances higher. And do we have to have other jurisdictions to support? I'm just wondering what does it include?
Yeah, so there are a number of letters of support that we've been in the process of collecting. The grant is highly favorable to water reuse, which is basically what the Prairie Water System does. That's favored very highly, as well as kind of the makeup of Aurora from kind of a socioeconomic diversity aspect is also looked really highly upon. And so we believe, based on feedback we've gotten today, that we do have a good shot at it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's great to know. Okay.
Keep your fingers crossed for us.
I will, definitely. Okay, I think I have both of those. And is there anything else that we need to discuss? I'm going to go ahead and make just, I guess our next meeting will be, when is our next meeting? I don't see it. Confirm next meeting.
The
Right now,
20th of
it's
July.
20th.
The 20th of July? Okay. So I guess we'll go ahead and keep it as is unless there's something different. I thank you for this kind of just, hanging in there with me today, especially with all of this happening. And I'm glad that we were able to kind of have the meeting and just kind of get some things moved forward. So, and I do apologize for
that.
My colleagues and just the late notice on everything.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for your willingness to move those 2 items forward. There were a couple of other things we were going to mention just briefly.
Okay.
We had sent out previously a survey to all of council for this year's water tour. And the responses came back and identified August 26th. So that's our council tour date. This year, we're looking at a 1-day tour, and since it's only a 1-day tour, we're probably not going to go as far. So we've scheduled a facility at the base of the foothills over at the bottom of Waterton Canyon.
Mhm.
And we would go look at Strontia Springs Reservoir. There's a lot of items that council's been asked to approve associated with Strontia and our partnership with Denver Water there. Most of our mountain water, pretty much all of our mountain water, goes through Strontia. So it's one of our critical facilities, even though it's a partnership with Denver. So we would meet up there for the day in an education center that is owned by Denver, and then would go look at the tunnel, would look at that we utilized to get the water here, and would look at the reservoir itself to give some perspective of that part of our system, and would spend a lot of time talking about the water supply, all the different needs we have to create water supply looking forward into the future. And we're going to try to put those in context from a cost perspective also, so that council has a good preview. So it's kind of every water tour we do has a lot of meat, but that's what we're trying to focus on this year. So it'll be a little bit more detail than what we've provided in a few areas previously. So it'll be a really good day.
Okay.
Because of that, we are drafting a communication to send to council again that says, hey, as a reminder, here's the day, here's some logistics, and thank you for committing to spend August 26th with us. We want to make sure nobody's forgetting and scheduling over it, etc. So we'd want to get that out before next water policy meeting, and then we can follow up and discuss some more in the next policy meeting as well.
Is there any way is it going to be, Marshall, sent to staff where we can at least get it into our calendars? Because
yep. Yeah,
okay.
we will do that as well. So we'll send a calendar invite with the write-up of the detail. That's a great idea.
Okay, that sounds good.
And then the last thing, we've talked about the water conservation ordinance a few times at the Water Policy Committee. Last time we provided a copy of the latest draft, and it had a couple of changes in there. One of the changes we had included last time was to change backyard square footage from 500 up to 750. But following up with the mayor and recognizing the challenge we ran into, a lot of communication had already gone out with the 500 in there, including to all the news stations and all the newspapers. And so the mayor said, hey, let's leave it at 500 for now. And if somebody wants to propose, when we bring it to study, if they want to propose an amendment to amend to 750, we can talk about it at that time. But essentially the communication was, we've got to quit changing it because we put all this communication out there already. So that one has gone back to the 500. A couple of other changes were not communicated. The detail wasn't communicated quite as much to the press. So those changes I think are still good. But from the version you saw last time, it's reverted back to 500 in the backyards now. It still has the allowance if people can't have a backyard that they could put that in the front yard. That part stayed in.
Okay.
But wanted to make sure you were aware of that. I think I've got a meeting with Councilman Sundberg next week, so I'll make sure he's aware of that as well. And then I guess I'll just have to figure out how to communicate with Curtis individually and let him know about the 500. So.
Yeah, and make sure he knows about that, because I know that was one of his
Yep.
issues with that.
Yep.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. And I guess again, if people want to, if council members want to change it, we could do it through the amendment process. You know, when it
Yeah,
comes
so
up,
exactly. We're scheduled to come on the 18th of July to study
Okay.
session and have a good discussion there. And if you know anybody has a concern or wants to say, hey, we think we should make this additional adjustment, then it's in the public forum, public process, and we'll just recommunicate to the press and all the places we've gone to with it that, hey, this changed as it was going through the approval process. We'll figure that
So
out.
has there been anything else, Marshall, with developers, anything else that has come out of this since our last meeting? I know we had a lot of discussion on it, and I know that the footage was an issue, but what else? Has there been anything else or any other concerns?
Yeah, good question. We did go to the Joint Task Force, which is where the developers meet. That was on the 7th or 8th. When was that? 6th. It was, well, yeah, last week we went on the 9th to the
Okay.
JTF. We did get a little more, we had good discussions with them. One of the other questions that came up, and we did, by the way, communicate the 500 to the Joint Task Force.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of concern about the 500. We've gotten some feedback about the allowance of synthetic turf. So the council commentary will have a reference to our standards, where we're adjusting some of our standards to allow more applications with synthetic turf. So that didn't have to change in the ordinance itself, but it will show up in the commentary. That was some feedback we got from developers, was that Aurora was a little more limited in our current standards and code than other places for allowance of synthetic turf. And they were concerned if we were going to not allow native or cool weather bluegrass in medians, street side landscapes, front yards. They said you really need to open up the synthetic turf options a little bit more. So we are doing that in the standards.
Okay.
And the commentary will refer to that.
Okay.
One of the other discussions we had at JTF, and actually we've heard from one or two other council members who've weighed in. They've asked, and this is a good question, they've asked, why are you limiting turf to just backyards? And now we're saying if you can't have turf in the backyard, we would allow it in the front yard. Why don't you just open it up and allow 500 square feet wherever people want to put it? The answer on that is we don't really have a good way to administer turf in backyards. We can track, monitor, and police turf in front yards very easily, but we don't have the same ability to do that in the backyard. And if we allow turf in a lot of front yards, we'll lose the ability to track and monitor who's supposed to have turf there or not. So it's really an administration challenge. There's no good way to monitor or track if we open it up and just allow 500 square feet wherever people want to put it. So it did get into a little bit of I think people are recognizing it will be difficult for us to monitor or track or police the 500 too. If somebody puts 600 square feet in, or goes back in later and increases the size of the turf in the backyard, we're not going to have really a good way to administer or track that. But we can police and monitor the front yards very easily. And so we're trying to keep it where we can gain the water saving benefits we need, and that focuses on the front yards.
Okay, well, that's a good question.
Yeah, and so we've gotten that one a few times now. Greg, I think you're here with us. Do you remember anything else we heard?
No, that was pretty much the meat of it, right? It's coming down to some minor challenges that are frankly a little easier for us to manage at this point. I think the development community seems to be pretty accepting of what we're proposing here. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we did get positive feedback on the couple of other tweaks we've made. It was acknowledged and appreciated. The Home Builders Association was in the JTF, and they thanked us for some of the adjustments we made based on feedback. There is, and council may hear a little bit of this discussion, but there is a discussion ongoing about what the cost is for a front yard compared to the cost of a low water landscape, low water use landscape. We think it's about $2,000 if you try to compare apples to apples. Where that gets a little interesting is you could put a $15,000 low water use landscape in for sure.
Mhm.
But you could also put a $15,000 turf landscape in. And so there's some variability in what you can do. And so trying to encourage people to be reasonable and compare, a basic installation to a basic installation instead of a basic installation to a pristine, Cadillac installation. So some of that discussion is out there. The connection fees will result in $2,500 of a lower connection fee for one of the properties that goes in with this new code. So if they go wise water use landscape in the front yard, their tap fee goes down by $2,500. So we think that's more than enough to offset the installation costs. Some of the developers have weighed in and said, well, we don't think that's enough. And again, how many boulders do you put in? How many terraces do you put in? It depends on how fancy they get. So
Right.
you may hear a little bit of that. We think that the $2,500 is more than reasonable to offset the installation cost differential. And the other benefit that we've communicated is not only that, then there's an ongoing savings to the resident who lives there because their water use also goes down. So,
Okay.
so that we had some of that discussion at the JTF also. It went pretty well, but there are different perspectives that you may hear on that.
All right. And just my last question on that, if this passes through, is there just going to be a continuous analysis done to see how it's working, how effective it is? So you can actually see the benefits to really show, community, people who are buying that this is a good thing, or maybe it's not working, or maybe it is good, but is that going to be the continuation of how we're going to do
Yes.
analysis? Okay. On that?
Absolutely. So we're
Okay.
going to collect a bunch of data. We're going to
Okay.
analyze and communicate the data. In addition to that, because that's a really good question, we are installing AMI, the automated meter infrastructure right now, which we've got about 3 years left before we have those throughout the entire city. But what that does is gives us the ability to look at water use on everybody's meters down to 15-minute increments. So customers have that ability and we have that ability. And so that'll give us a lot more data, a lot more analytical ability to look at the data and see what the trends are, what the benefits of the ordinance are. And we do anticipate, I would be surprised if we're not back within probably 4 or 5 years with some recommended adjustments or enhancements to the water conservation ordinance based on that data. But it is going to take us a little while to get all the data and to make sure we're confident in the conclusions.
Okay. That sounds good, because data, when people see the numbers in the data and they see that something's proven, then they're more accepting of the idea. So, okay, that's great. Well, I think you addressed all my questions. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody on here. And I guess we'll have a great day, have a great week, and thank you for adapting with me in this again in this meeting. So, and I appreciate all the updates.
Thank you very much. And if you have any questions about anything, but especially those 2 items you just agreed to sponsor, if you have questions later, give me a call or give anybody a call and we'll make sure we get you.
Yeah, I may be doing that. What I do is I kind of go through my notes as I just want to make sure I'm on good when I'm doing the introduction or whatever I'm going to do. So I may be having some questions to all of you or to you. So be expecting a call or email from me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you, Angela.